3, 2, 1, click. Everybody good?
I really hesitated for a moment because I wasn't sure whether to click on the 1 or not.
From Relay FM, this is Connected episode 183. It's made possible this week by our sponsors, Hover, Away, and Casper. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I'm your host, and I'm joined by your two other hosts. We're all equal footing, even though I'm the one announcing the show. Up first, we have Michael Hurley. Michael, how are you?
You were very, very traditional this week.
Well, I am now, but will it be that way in the edit? No one knows.
Yeah, anything could happen. It could be in reverse. Server me.
We also are joined, of course, by Mr. Federico Fatici. Hey, buddy.
Hi, how are you? It's good to have you back.
Yes, I was absent last week. I was absent in the body, but present
Were
in the
you
spirit.
though? Yeah, I mean, it's almost strange to be able to talk to you in real time instead of having this sort of godlike commentary coming from above into our ears, into our show. Yeah. It's strange. Are you a real person?
I think so.
Even or okay, cool. All right, yeah. So this is the show.
This is the show. Yes. We start with follow up
with you.
And I think we already talked about one. Last week I was absent, but I still edited the show. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, maybe listen to the first couple minutes and you'll get a taste of whatever that was.
It was really good. You did a really good job. I think the Stephen era has been just a huge success so far.
I will say, for the listener who's rolling their eyes at me right now, I did not put this in the show notes. I did not put this in follow-up. Someone else did.
It's just in big bold letters, you must applaud me. It's very upsetting.
Or I'll string your words together and make you say terrible things. So let's jump in. What is this?
Yeah, I have a few clarifications, corrections, and pieces of follow-up from last week. Maj pointed out that a correction we were talking about the fingerprint sensor, talking about that in-screen fingerprint sensor. So it is made by a company called Synaptic. The phone maker Vivo, they didn't make it. That was what I said. I was incorrect on that. Vivo is just the first manufacturer to use it. So that's a good thing because it then means that Synaptic, the company that makes this fingerprint sensor, they can sell it far and wide because it's just a part made by a vendor is what it looks like so far. And Vivo, for whatever reason, it's a manufacturer in China, is the first one to really be doing anything public with it. It might be because it's a tricky part or an expensive part, so it's being done at low volume. I don't know, but Synaptic is the company and they make those sensors.
I do wonder, I mean, it's great that it's like this third party, like OEM, other phone, companies could go and buy this thing and integrate it. But I wonder, and you guys talked a little about this, like, is there a market for this thing? Like, Apple's not going to go back to a fingerprint reader.
Android,
almost
like Android will keep doing. There will be a lot of Android phones that will do fingerprint sensors. If anything, just to cater for people that don't like the face scanning, right? So if you've got so much choice,
I just wonder if those customers are used to it being on the back, and that, you know what I mean? Like, would they make the move to put it back on the front where it used to be?
I think the back is nice. The front is normal. And I think that if you can have so much of the screen be the sensor, that makes it good to put it on the front again, right? Because you've added an additional incentive. Like if you can cover a quarter of the screen so you don't actually have to put your finger or your thumb in a specific place, that is enough of an incentive to move it again, right? In my opinion, because now you've created something that is vastly superior. Many people also recommended to me a way to trick Face ID into triggering a new scan. So this is something that I was complaining about, that like if you're looking at your home screen and Face ID doesn't recognize you, there wasn't a button or anything you could press to make it scan your face again. Well, it turns out if you tilt the phone away from you and back again, it will trigger a rescan, because what it's doing is something with the accelerometer. I reckon this is something to do with the raise to wake stuff, so it effectively treats it as a new raise to wake. It's a hack, but it totally works, and I've been using it this week, and I'm very happy about it. Like, it's fixed one of my biggest issues. If it doesn't recognize me, I just tilt away, tilt back, and it does it straight away. So I like that, but I still think that there needs to be a better mechanism for it, but this one will totally work for me for now. I got lots of feedback about that.
If you do that enough times, it sort of becomes like a workout. If you do that like 100 of times every day.
Yeah, wrist exercises.
you should put some weights on the back of the iPhone so you can exercise.
I mean, seriously, this phone's pretty heavy as it is, so,
We're going to get pitches for cases now that you can attach weights to. You know what you've done.
It's like when Goku trains in Dragon Ball because he needs to become faster, and so he puts on weights.
Sure. We can totally relate to that.
I was getting ready to bring that up.
Especially Steven knows. Steven knows, I'm sure.
I'm surprised that we didn't think of it before now.
Exactly.
It's weird. I had it written down in my notebook. It's very strange.
Steven, tell us about Dragon Ball.
I can't tell you about Dragon Ball.
Steven.
But I can tell you about the story in the San Francisco Chronicle. Apple Park is a beautiful campus. Everything is made out of glass and dreams and hope. And the problem with those three construction methods is that people walk into them. And if you walk into dreams and hope, you're mostly okay. But if you walk into glass, you're going to have a bad time. And so this article has transcripts from 3 911 calls from Apple's new campus. These are retained by public record requests. You can go and get these. People walking into glass and getting hurt. And this is a funny story to me, but it's also, it's terrible that people are getting hurt. And like, clearly Apple has a problem on their hands. But it's just, I don't know. It's just something about this story just really, it just fits so many things that people complain about Apple, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I have a couple of points on this. One, it's super weird to read these 911 transcripts, and you should read them just because they're interesting, especially because like they're really good transcripts. So they pick up these like strange inflections. The way that they respond to things is really interesting. Like every time on all 3 calls, like the way that the address is described is very peculiarly, like they also, the person that's calling is always really hesitant to actually talk about what's happened, which I find really weird. Yeah. Like the 911 dispatcher has to ask them multiple times to explain what has happened. And then there are these 2 calls which were clearly made by the same person, like the last 2 calls, because every sentence is basically started with, it's going to be in. Like, this phrase is repeated a bunch. Like, it's going to be on the gate. It's going to be in Apple Park. It's going to be, like, and it's really just interesting to read these calls. I think it is really memey to point at this and be like, Johnny Ive can't design. But I'm sorry, Stephen, I roll my eyes at this. It's a building with glass. Like, I walked through a screen door at your house.
It's
right?
True,
like, this is just a thing that people do, and there are ways around it, and eventually people will stop doing it because everyone's bleeding out. So
yeah, everyone's dead. I didn't put this in here to make the point that Johnny Ive is bad at buildings, although maybe he is. It's just a weird story because we don't hear much about Apple, like their campus stuff before Apple Park, and they made such a huge deal of it, and now it's in the news again. Like it's a very strange story because we don't see this sort of stuff from
also
Apple.
As like there were professional architects involved in this. It wasn't like it wasn't all Johnny.
Maybe put some banners or something on that glass. I've worked in places with plenty of glass. It happens, but it's it's a thing. Anyways,
yeah, this is going to be one of those like sad situations where they have this beautiful campus, but now every wall is covered in stickers.
Yeah,
right. It's like that's the unfortunate part of this, which I'm sure they're doing now if they haven't done already. Right, like they're trying to put like some tasteful warning signs, like push and pull or whatever. But like it's just a shame that like eventually every pane of glass is going to be covered with a health and safety sticker.
So what you're saying, Myke, is I'm going to quote you back to you. It's a shame to cover Apple products in stickers, is what you've said.
That's what he said. It's on the record. It's in our audio files. That's what he said.
I very nearly cursed on the show, but I held it back.
I love the question from the dispatcher. Is this a building or a room number? Because I'm imagining like these people staying in an Apple hotel and everybody just at their computers in the rooms. It's a very strange picture. But yeah, it's I don't know. I've never been I've never worked in this type of office, so I don't know. This is something that I've learned recently of like offices with glass walls and doors and people walking into them. This is all new to me, but I've never walked into a glass door myself. So I suppose it hurts real bad, especially like if you're, walking like, you need to go somewhere and you're like focus on your phone and then you just suddenly hit your head.
Like it's
like that must be awful. That must be really awful.
It would happen all the time. Can I read just a little section of these calls?
Please.
This is call 2 on January the 2nd. This is just to highlight the interesting text. This is like a good example of it. So the dispatcher, what's the address of the emergency? It's going to be 1 Apple Park, Cupertino. It's going to be a medical emergency. Can you verify the address of the emergency? It's going to be 1 Apple Parkway, Cupertino. Okay, and is that a business? Yes, it's going to be Apple Campus. It's just like it keeps going on like this. It's really interesting to me. I don't understand it, but this is obviously just the way this person talks. And it's like, I know I have my tics. I say like a lot, right?
Yeah.
But it's just fun to me to read it written down like this because this person just keeps saying this phrase over and over again. Anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting just because you kind of get to see the way that the protocols are. Because like the person who hurts themselves is not really allowed to talk to the people. They're always it's a security situation, they call it. It's all really just weird. But it's there if you want to go see it.
Federico, tell us about iTunes LP.
It's 2004, everyone.
I think that yesterday. This website, which is also a newspaper, I think, Metro, they published this report based on an email that Apple was discontinuing the iTunes LP format, which is this, I want to say, interesting experiment that Apple did. I think it dates back to 2009, maybe. And it was a way for artists with an album on the iTunes store.
This Metro article is so bad.
Yeah, it's terrible.
You need to go and look at this. It's really bad. Like, basically, they don't know what iTunes LP is. And they think that it means all albums are being removed from the iTunes store. Oh, gosh, this is terrible.
The title of the story is End of iTunes? ? Leaked Apple email sparks fears over future of music downloads.
Only to the Metro.
Check out the GIF though. That's like iTunes version 6 with cover flow.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm saving that GIF.
So never mind the source, but the story is that this format, which was a way for artists to essentially replicate digitally the experience of buying a physical CD album. So using a mix of CSS, HTML, and JavaScript, I want to say, you could offer on the desktop in iTunes these extra contents, such as bonus tracks or the what's the name of the notes that you used to get in like CDs, liner notes, video. So you could offer these basically DVD extras, but for music. And I have thoughts about this. I thought it was a cool idea, but basically, then Apple reached out to The Verge and they sent a statement. They will not be accepting new submissions for iTunes LP content. The submissions for new LP content, if it ever, I don't know if somebody is submitting new content. Well, those are ending this month. I'm sorry to officially communicate this to you. But the existing iTunes LP albums and your purchases will live on and you will be able to re-download them and enjoy them only on the desktop because they're not compatible with mobile devices.
Man, that's just like I love that, right? Like they're going to keep supporting it, which means just more old code in iTunes, right? Like just more legacy in iTunes. That's what that means. Poor iTunes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what you got to do? It's an old app anyway, so everything is old. And I want to say that I'm sad because I think, and if you pay attention, you could see how maybe Spotify is sort of doing something along these lines. That the idea of being able to reach out to the super fans of an artist and to offer, maybe even let them pay for extra content. It's something that I think should have been adapted to the streaming era, which is something that, of course, Apple never did. But I could see how, if I'm really into Fall Out Boy, for example, I would love to have notes or video or bonus tracks, stuff just for me, an interactive content that I could use within Apple Music instead of having to search on Google or go to YouTube or something else. I think it's a great idea for people who are really into, an artist or really into music. But of course, how would you reconcile this with a subscription model? And I guess that's why Apple ultimately, it was a great idea, launched in the wrong time period. That's the way that I think about it.
So what you want is a way to go into iTunes and to connect with the artist that you love.
No.
Maybe they could just put it in a tab in the iOS music app.
Yeah, and when they're ready to talk to you, they can just ping you, and then you'll know that they want to speak to you and tell you about their new releases.
So the only social feature that Apple ever got right is the current one in Apple Music, and that's it. That's very
I'll tell you
good.
something that happened to me a couple of days ago. Federico sent me a message, and he's like, there's this band that I think you would like. They're called Mount Joy. And I was like, okay. And I saw it, and I didn't get to it at that time. I opened Apple Music like an hour later, and it was right there, and it had your little face on it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's that album that Federico told me. And then I started playing it on my HomePod. Like, that is a great feature. Works very well. I like it a lot. It's good. Unless your friends have terrible music tastes, then it's not so good.
Yeah. Anyway, iTunes LP, I think, I still think there's potential for reaching out to people who want to support their favorite artists, even on a streaming platform, in different ways other than just give us money and you'll listen to music. Like, I would love to have notes, I would love to have interviews, I would love to have extra content, and I want to pay for it. Or I would love to have, and this is something that I think Beats Music experimented with, to be able to buy tickets for concerts or buy merchandising. I think it's also something Spotify is playing with. If you go on an artist page in Spotify, you can see links to buy merchandise on the artist's website. And if you consider Apple as this huge install base and they have Apple Pay, why don't you do something like that? And make it easy for people to support their favorite artists and go to see live music, and retaining people within Apple Music, because it's a virtuous cycle that I think would be beneficial to everybody. But iTunes LP is not that, and it's going away. So better keep all the downloads of your favorite iTunes LP contents. I think John on Mac Stories actually linked to a Wikipedia entry of all the iTunes LP albums that you can buy on iTunes, because of course somebody made that list. It's probably the intern at Apple maintaining that Wikipedia.
I'm pretty sure I have one. I don't know what it will be, but I'm sure I have one, because I remember when the feature debuted, I remember the Grateful Dead one that they kept showing off on stage. I don't know why I remember that so fondly, but I know that I would have bought one, because that was in that stage. Well, I guess I'm still in that stage where I'll buy literally anything Apple will do, since that stage never ended.
So how's your HomePod?
Today's show is brought to you by Hover. Building your online identity has never been more important than with Hover. You can find the domain that shows the world who you are and what you're passionate about. You want to have a place online where people can come and find what you're doing. It's really important. Like, even if you have, say, a podcast and you have a website for that podcast, you still want to have a domain of your own, a place that's yours, so you can link to all of the projects that you do. It's a nice little landing page. And look, Hover is great for anything that you want to be able to put online. No matter what types of ideas you've got rolling around in your brain, you can buy domains for them. Like, I very frequently buy domain names at 1:30 a.m. I did that like just a couple of days ago because I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And off I go to Hover. And I like that when I go there, sometimes like, oh, well, okay, somebody else has already had that idea. So they've taken over someone who's already got the .com. But it doesn't matter because Hover offers over 400 domain name extensions. So you can choose from so many more. And I did just that for a domain that I was looking for because there are some really, really useful ones in there. I won't tell you which one specifically because it might give something away. Hover also have great customer support. I love how easy it is to use their dashboard to set up domain forwarding and stuff like that. It's super, super simple. If you want to show the world what you're passionate about, Hover is there to help you make that first step. Head over now to hover.com/connected and get 10% off your first purchase. Our thanks to Hover for their support of this show. So, Stephen, you wrote a little article on your weblog, 512pixels.net, where you basically told the world that the HomePod is being rotated away from the kitchen because your family rebelled against you.
That's pretty much what happened. So I think I spoke on the show that to review anything, I really I need to actually use it and spend time with it. I'm not very good at the fast 48-hour impressions type things. And so for me, for the HomePod, that meant unplug the Echo and put the HomePod where it sat in the kitchen. And so I did that after, the first couple of days I had it. It's been there ever since. I unplugged the Echo and put it in the hall closet, which led to a lot of questions about where the lady inside the Echo had gone from our 3-year-old. He was very worried that something bad had happened to her, which is something to think about as a parent, but that's not really the point today. So the HomePod's been there for 3 weeks. And this weekend, kind of all in the kitchen, and someone asks the HomePod something, and it just botches it. I forget what it was. Some simple request, and Siri just fell down. And just kind of all of a sudden, the family is sharing with me that they really want the Echo back in the kitchen. And so I didn't want a rebellion, so I put the Echo back. And now the HomePod is sitting out here in the studio on the other desk, just kind of sitting there looking sad and alone.
I have a question for you as it relates to your children's use of these devices. Do you think that there could be a point that they grew an attachment to the Echo because it was the first one, it was a novelty initially, and now it's that's the thing? So something different with a different voice isn't the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. And Snell had said something similar about how his kids sometimes, or maybe it was John Siracusa, someone said their kids use the wrong name. For my kids...
Yeah, I think that was Siracusa on ATP. He was saying that that they say the Google phrase to the HomePod. Right.
Because that wake phrase is just the word that you start to when you want to do computer stuff with your voice. That's just the word you start with. And so yeah, that's definitely part of it.
I do it too.
Yeah.
I say Alexa when I want to trigger the HomePod. I do it. So it is a thing because in my mind, a voice command now is just started with that word. It's not necessarily that I'm thinking about what device I'm talking to. It's just when I want the lights to go on, there is a sentence that includes that. So it's the whole sentence includes the Echo wake word as well as the command.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely a factor in our case. But really the use cases, and I've talked about this before, we use the Echo for music listening, checking the weather and news, setting multiple timers, and controlling smart home stuff. And all my smart home stuff works the same with HomeKit or with the Echo. And the HomePod is way better for music listening when Siri parses what you want correctly. But all the rest of it, the Echo is better. The Echo has this really cool flash briefing thing, which by the way, is a little plug. We have a new show on Relay called Subnet, which you can plug into your flash briefing on the Amazon Echo service. And so for me, I ask Amazon, what's the news? It reads NPR. It plays NPR. It plays Subnet, which is my own voice in my own kitchen, which is kind of funny, and then plays the weather.
And you can do all on Google Home too.
Yes, it is on Google Home. You can do all of that stuff with the HomePod, but you have to do them one at a time. There's some of these features that have evolved over time with the Echo, the HomePod just doesn't have. And unfortunately, some of that stuff is exactly what we use the Echo a lot for. And so for us, the sound quality, which is way better than the Echo, wasn't enough to offset, okay, well, all these other voice assistant type things we want to do, the Echo does better. It fits our needs better as a family. And so I don't want two of these things in my kitchen, which is what a bunch of people said. Like, we'll just have both. It's like, well, that's not really an answer for us in our kitchen. So we're going to have one, and we're going to have one that the music's okay, it's fine, and it does the other voices and stuff better than Siri does at this point.
What about it getting better, though? Like, this is a thing that everyone is kind of hanging their hat on right now, and it's true,
Yes.
right? That Siri can just get better, and if Siri gets better, then you have better hardware and competent voice assistants.
Yeah. Well, there is people have quoted this, but I think it was really well said by Marco that you're buying something for what it can do today. Don't buy it like on the promise of features tomorrow. Like that's really good advice as far as buying consumer electronics. But backing up a little bit, the feedback of, Siri will get better soon, I think is extremely short-sighted for a couple of reasons. One, Siri has been less than great on Apple's most important product for years. The iPhone, like Apple is the iPhone company if you look at their bottom line, and Siri's an important part of the iPhone, and they haven't made real progression on it on the iPhone in a while. And I'm not saying they haven't done anything. They've made the voice better. They add new domains. Like, it is improving, but it's not improving as rapidly as it needs to catch up with the Echo. And so I don't understand how what is surely a low volume product sold just to Apple Music customers is enough for Apple to completely change their internal structure or fix whatever's broken in the Siri team. Like whatever has made Siri slow to improve. I don't think the HomePod is the magic bullet to fix that within Apple. I just don't see it. Because if they really thought Siri needed improving, and it's on the most important product your company makes, like the side button on the iPhone 10, it's the Siri button, and it also does some other stuff. And if that wasn't enough to get the Siri train on the right track, then I don't think the HomePod is nearly powerful enough as a lever to make that happen.
Can I provide a counterpoint?
Sure.
So, a lot of this stuff, I would assume, a lot of things that get prioritized because Apple is a company made of humans, they become prioritized when somebody important enough up the food chain realizes a problem.
So what you're saying is my blog post will change this within Apple?
No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not talking about your blog post, even though I'm sure it's been widely read and circulated because you're an influencer. But my theory would be that, high enough executives in Apple are probably not using Siri on their phone that often, because I think that a lot of people that are pretty confident in technology tend not to use Siri on their phone as much as they would use it in a product like the HomePod, because the HomePod's only interaction is via Siri. So I would assume now that if Siri is deemed to have problems inside of Apple, they are becoming more apparent now that more employees and engineers and executives will be using the HomePod as a product and realizing some of the shortcomings firsthand. So whilst I agree that logically it doesn't make sense because Siri has been a part of basically every product that Apple has shipped for the last few years, why hasn't it gotten better? I guess my point would be that maybe because it's not being used that much, so it kind of gets swept under the rug. But now that they have a device where Siri is the interface, it might prompt them to prioritize things a little bit differently because it's right in their face when they try and use the product and get not less than stellar results, but just not the results that they would want all the time.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good counterpoint. And I don't know how I feel about Apple fixes things when the boss notices. I'm just going to put that off to the side for now. Although that's a really interesting conversation we should have one day. I hope that they do fix it. I think some people took what I wrote or how I responded on Twitter to be, well, he doesn't want it to improve. And that's not true. I want Apple to be as good at this as Google and Amazon are. Apple should be as good as their competitors are in this market. This is a really important market, and I hope that they can do it. I just think that even if what you said is true, and I think it probably is, that's not going to be overnight. Like the people in my email saying, "Oh, just wait to WWDC and Apple's going to have this massive overhaul." I just don't see it moving that quickly because we have years and years of history showing that that it's not. And take something like, and I'm comparing apples to oranges, but like the Mac Pro conversation, right? Like it takes time for these decisions to be made, and it takes even longer for the work to be done. Like I'm sure none of the three of us are anywhere near smart enough to work on this stuff. Like I can't imagine the engineering that goes into it, but I hope that they do it. Now, if we're, in June, we're recording our post WWDC show, and 2018 is the year of Siri, and Siri's like rapidly better. I don't think that means I was wrong. I think it means that this has been going on.
That's selective.
Hear me out. I don't think they can be
No, I know.
as good as Amazon in the next 3 months. Like, that's just not possible. If we are going to get WWDC or sometime in the fall, and the HomePod is all of a sudden way better, then like that's awesome. It means Apple has noticed this, but I think it means that it's been going on in the background a little bit. And then why ship the HomePod late if Siri's still back? There's lots of questions in this. I think the big picture is today, at least, it struggles. It struggles with some really basic things, but it's not a nightmare. Like Siri on the HomePod is not awful. It's just frustrating, and your mileage will vary. I know y'all have them and like them. I have one and like it. I'm keeping it. I'm going to have it out here in my office. But for our needs as a family, like as a kitchen thing, it just wasn't the right fit right now. But I am keeping it because I do hope Apple fixes it, and I think that they can, and I think that they will. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take.
Federico,
there's something fascinating. That I've noticed in the replies to Stephen. The idea of there's a common thread of folks on Twitter and on podcasts or websites saying, "I'm sure Apple knows and they're working on this." And this is a fascinating social mechanic to me. I've been thinking about why do people think this way? Why almost analyzing the situation, like why do some folks struggle to reconcile being able to like something, but also see the flaws and the mistakes in the product or in a story, in whatever it is. There's a group of like-minded individuals who they need to tell you that they are sure that Apple knows. And I've been thinking about this. Why is this like such a common piece of feedback that we get? Because whenever I point out something that is not up to my standards on iOS, for example, I get this reply, and Stephen got this reply, and Myke gets this reply. And the conclusion that I've come to is that for some people, hope is sort of like a powerful sedative, in the sense that they need to know, and so they say, "I'm sure that Apple knows and it's working on this." And I wonder why that is. Why do you need that kind of conviction that Apple knows, they're working on this, they got this? It's interesting to me because it's sort of, when you're having this kind of discussions on Twitter, it can be fascinating to have this argument, to get into these arguments with folks who have more of an inclination to just forgive every single mistake that Apple does, and they do make mistakes, because they're not perfect, they're not gods, they're just a really good company, I think, but there's some stuff that needs to get better. But that kind of reply, it sort of defeats an entire conversation, because if you're sure that Apple knows, where do we go from here? I think and this is something that I wanted to bring up a while back on the show. I think it's always more productive when we get into these arguments to offer some kind of solution, to offer some kind of like, how can this get better? Instead of saying, I'm sure it will get better, because that's just useless. You know, for one, it's a fake hope because you have this hope. You don't know for sure. But also,
seems logical,
it's not a reply.
But this isn't necessarily a logic situation. You can't just assume.
Exactly.
It feels like it should get better, so it will. That's not how these things work.
Yes, and that's the fatal flaw. And I've seen the replies to Steven. I've been sort of following, you know, without getting into it. I think you can like the HomePod, like I do, like Myke does, I think. I mean, I have two of them.
You like it more than most.
I like
right? Like, genuinely, you like it more than most people do.
I like it twice than
two
you.
times. I think maybe a little bit more than that, because you also got rid of all of your echoes. So, which does make me wonder, actually. I want to know, right, from you, what you think about the quality of Siri. Because you are in this way more than most people that have this device. Because everybody else that I know that has got a HomePod also has an Echo, which they have kept plugged in, and they are probably continuing to give the majority of their commands to during their day. But you got rid of everything and switched over to the HomePod. Do you agree with the criticisms about the quality of Siri right now?
Well, yeah, for sure. I do. I tried the other day, like I wanted to add something to my grocery list because we've been testing AnyList, and it didn't work because the HomePod still thinks that I don't have any of these SiriKit apps installed on my devices.
Right.
And also, like, I noticed that because of the current placement of the HomePod, it's too close to my TV, and sometimes it does not understand what I'm asking, or it thinks that I haven't stopped talking, where instead it's the TV that keeps talking, but my request is over. So we're probably gonna switch the placement to be more distant from the TV. And yes, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to to understand that Siri has problems. Also, you can understand that those problems exist and still like it. Because I would say that in my experience, I never did the news briefings myself. Because I'm not interested in U.S. political news more than I already see them in the Italian news. Anyway, I listen to podcasts and stations are fine. I listen to music and music requests have been fine for me. And the other day I asked about like a unit conversion and it worked. I've noticed that Sylvia is starting to, I'm talking quietly because I'm bragging. I don't want her to listen that I'm bragging about this, but she's starting to ask questions to Siri, which is nice because she's accepting her, which is cool.
It's not a new roommate.
Yeah, well,
it kind of is,
isn't it though? I mean, and in 2 rooms, so I think
she has accepted another person into our relationship.
Oh my
gosh.
It's going well, but also I understand the problems, and that's fine. I want to say I'm sure that we'll get better. I'm not sure. I hope that we'll get better, but I think in spite of the problems, I'm still able to enjoy it. And if I ever come to the point where Siri is so bad, I cannot even set timers or play. Also, I should say I don't set multiple timers, so that's not a problem for me, but it is for other people, and I accept that. And I don't respond with, I'm sure it will get better, because that's just useless. Anyway, I like it. I still like it, and we're starting to like it as a family, which is nice. So yeah, that's.
I have one last thing on this. It's just, this is a purely just a problem in my house, where Adina will say to me a lot, "Hey, sir." Right? It's just like a joke that we've had for a while. She'll just call me sir, but now very frequently, she will ask me something, and someone in the room goes, which is what the HomePod does. It goes, If it hears the trigger phrase, but you don't give it a command, because she might just say it to get my attention, it just goes, in its little British accent. So that's a little thing that keeps happening in my home, which I'm sure is a problem for anybody whose name is Alex or something, right? Like that is an issue for you, because you wouldn't change the wake word because your name is not the exact name, but like every now and then it's going to get confused. So I find it to be funny.
So that is an interesting point, because on the Echo you can change the wake word,
Yeah.
and Apple doesn't offer that. I saw some people tweeting today that, maybe it'd be nice if you could change it per device. You could call it the HomePod, "Hey HomePod," and you call your phone, the regular phrase, for instance, because there is this issue, and I'm sure y'all have seen it, where for me at least it's always my Apple Watch will catch the command instead of the HomePod. Like if I raise my wrist, like if I'm doing something and I'm talking to like there's this move I can do and it confuses Siri, which is hilarious. And maybe it'd be nice to have some customization at some point so you could avoid that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would honestly much prefer to say, "Hey HomePod," like for this one device. It just makes sense to me. I don't know why, but like that in my mind is just more of like a thing, because I'm specifically asking that device because it's not my usual system of voice control. Last thing, I want to just talk about this, the HomePod and like the little movie video thing made by Spike Jonze. It features FK Twigs with music from Anderson .Paak. You have to watch this video if you have not yet watched this video. It might be my favorite Apple ad of all time. It is freaking unbelievable. It is so good. I love it. I love the metaphors of it. Like everything is expanding in the house as she's listening to the music. Like I like that, right? Like the HomePod adds all this additional dimension. Like I love this video so much. It is wonderful. If you haven't seen it, it's like 4 minutes long. The music's really good. The dance is really good. But just the visuals that it creates are really cool and feels like, because even the Apple website is using the kind of the colored strand visuals with the HomePod now. I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes the template for future ads for the HomePod, like the silhouettes became for the iPod. Like it feels like a really strong visual metaphor that I like a lot, and it's very, very unique. So I really love this ad. I really, really love this ad. It's a really nice piece of filmmaking. So if you haven't seen it, you should see it because it's wonderful. Today's show is brought to you by Away. Away are a team of thinkers, seekers, and designers, and they have made smart premium suitcases that you can get for under $300. So this way, your luggage won't cost more than your plane ticket. If you're anything like me, when you're traveling, what you need most is more battery. And when you buy an Away suitcase, you can charge all of your devices while you travel, because both sizes of the Away carry-on feature USB ports with a battery inside that's large enough to charge your phone 5 times from one single charge. And Away even include this handy little tool so you can just pop that battery out if you need to as well. It's super, super simple to do. Go to awaytravel.com/connected right now and you can browse their selection of suitcases. They have over 10 colors in 5 sizes. They're all made with premium German polycarbonate, which is unrivaled in strength and impact resistance whilst remaining lightweight. They all have 4 360-degree spinner wheels. They're all compliant with TSA combination locks and with major US airline spaces. So the carry-ons are all compliant with the space that you can fit them in where you need to. They have a carry-on, a bigger carry-on, a medium size, and a large size, and a kids carry-on as well for the smaller travelers amongst us. Away cut out the middleman so you can get first-class luggage at coach prices. I have been a big fan of my Away suitcase since I got one many, many months ago, maybe like a year ago now. I've taken it on a bunch of trips, and that thing has remained intact. It gets thrown around, I'm sure, as it's being moved from place to place, because I shudder to think what happens to suitcases once they go through that little curtain. Like, I don't even want to know. There was a time where I could see out of the window a baggage attendant sitting on a plane. Me and Stephen were going to WWDC, I think, and I watched the baggage attendant pick up Stephen's bag because they made him put it in the hold, and she just threw it over this guardrail into this basket, and it was all of our audio equipment. So it's good to have a very strong suitcase, and Away suitcases are super, super strong. Big fan of my Away case. Away believes so much in the quality of their products, they offer you a lifetime guarantee. If anything breaks at all, they will fix or replace it for life, which is wonderful, because that means it is indestructible, because you can just get it replaced. They also have a 100-day trial with a no questions asked return policy, with free shipping on any order within the lower 48 states of the US. Travel smarter with the suitcase that charges your phone. To find out more, go to awaytravel.com/connected and use the code connected at checkout to get $20 off any of their suitcases. That is awaytravel.com/connected and the code connected for $20 off. Our thanks to Away for their support of this show and Relay FM.
So a couple of weeks ago, our friend Marco wrote I think what the kids call a blog post. I'm not familiar with this.
A blog. He wrote a blog. That's what he did.
It's like a tweet storm, but all on one page. It's a very confusing medium.
It's like a pod, but written down.
Yes, it's a written pod.
I quit.
It's a PodStorm in text.
Well done. So in this PodStorm, Marco draws some pretty harsh parallels between WatchKit apps and the Suite solution. And if you remember this, before the iPhone had apps, Apple, Steve Jobs said, "Hey, you've got Safari, just make web apps." And they did this thing where you can still do it in iOS. You can put a shortcut on your home screen to go to a website. They called it a Suite solution, and some other people had other names for it, which I can't say on the air. Wasn't super...
A sandwich of something that you shouldn't put into a sandwich.
Yes, bologna. Not bologna, I don't know. And I think he's right. So basically he builds this case of, these apps, especially in the beginning, WatchKit apps weren't really, WatchKit wasn't really an app framework. You were basically just sending data from the phone to the watch, and over time it's evolved a little bit where you can have logic running on the watch now. And there are some good examples of watch apps, but I think it's safe to say that most of them are pretty limited, and there's a lot of stuff that the watch just can't do or can do if you're Apple, but that's not in the frameworks that third-party developers can use. And basically his point is WatchKit only lets developers create baby apps, that they're not sort of these full-featured, rich apps we've gotten so used to on iOS over the years, that comparatively watch apps are very simple, very buggy, very limited. And that got me thinking, and I want to see what kind of we all use on our watches, app-wise, and what we think about the watch as an app platform and what Apple should do to maybe evolve it in the future.
I don't use a lot of watch apps. I love my Apple Watch, but I was going through this list, and seriously, the only two third-party apps that I use on a regular basis are Shazam, which is ironic because it's technically kind of owned by Apple, and Workouts Plus by Underscore. These are the two apps that I use every day, I would say. There's also the Apple Breathe app, which is not a third-party app, but it's a native watch app that I use. And sometimes I check the weather in Carrot and I check things off in Things, but I really don't do that often. I mostly use I've become one of those people who say I use my watch for notifications and workouts. I mean, the Apple Watch is essential for me now for fitness and all that kind of stuff. But I never go to the home screen. I keep very basic complications. I don't switch watch faces. In fact, I remove all the other watch faces because I don't want to switch them accidentally. I only keep one alternative workout-based watch face, and that's it.
Oh man, you got to have a kaleidoscope face just for the funsies.
I don't. No, I'm not fun in that way. I stick to very basic, stuff. So yeah, it's really not an app platform for me, which is a shame. But also, I think it should be an app platform. I don't think my usage of the watch justifies its the state that it is right now. I would love to use more apps, but it's just inconvenient, and all the other apps that I've tried are slow, or they haven't been really thought for the watch form factor. And I would love to have like a native Overcast, but that's not possible. I would love to have like a native HomeKit app that can do all kinds of stuff in the background, but that's also not possible, I think. I would love to have more apps that make sense for the watch, but developers can make them. And so the fact that I use my Apple Watch primarily for fitness and notifications, it means that's all I can do realistically right now. But I would love to do more.
I think I use more watch apps than most people do. I don't specifically know why, but I use a bunch of the built-in ones, right? So I use Mail and the Timer app, the Home app, the Nail Playing app. These are all in my dock, by the way. All of the apps that I use are in my dock. Messages, and then I use a bunch of third-party apps. So I use Dew, Workouts Plus, Just Press Record, Bear, Fantastical, and Carrot Weather. And they are all used very frequently. Like, I will use each of these applications multiple times a week, some of them multiple times a day. And I would like a lot of them to be better, but I've mostly accepted a lot of the frustrations that come with using these applications now. But I would love it if I could have more. Like, I would like to have like an Overcast app. I would like to have a Dew app that didn't get really upset when it was trying to be done when the phone is not attached to it, because it's trying to do the processing somehow. Like the processing of the voice recognition stuff is not that good on LTE, and I don't know what it is that's happening. I don't know what the difference is, whether it's trying to do more of it in the cloud or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, I think that I use these applications more than most people do. And it's not amazing. I don't get frustrated about it specifically. I just get frustrated when things don't work, but a lot of the time they do work.
Yeah, I think I'm probably closer to Federico on this scale. I was looking through my watch, and really the only third-party apps I use on any sort of regular basis are Carrot Weather, do Strava to start recording like bike rides. So that's, not every day, but, at least once a week. And then Todoist, just to kind of check on things, check things off. None of those apps I'm doing really any entry into. It's mostly like status and like checking things off and just kind of glancing in on things. Most of these are really like glorified notifications, or maybe interactive notifications as opposed to like a full, rich system. And really Carrot Weather, which I think we all three mentioned and use, I think it's probably by far the best watch OS app that I've got installed.
I agree.
But even it feels like limited. Even on the Series 3, it can be a little sluggish at times, and just it feels very basic. And that's fine. It's like I said, I think it's best in class. But I think it really shows that even if you really work really hard and a really good developer, it's still going to have some limitations to it. And when I read Marco's thing, he wrote it like a week and a half ago now, I found myself in agreement, and I still agree with what he said. And I was like, yeah, Apple should like fix it. I think some other people said just get rid of apps and just do notifications and stuff. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't think getting rid of apps is the answer. I think Apple is well within their, like we were talking about earlier, they have the ability to improve this. And I think in the beginning, it was very hardware constrained. That original watch was very slow. The Series 3 is a world apart as far as performance. And so I'm hoping that, as this hardware evolves, that the software catches up, because I don't think the watch is ever going to be like what Kevin Lynch like initially demoed in that first keynote of like, I'm doing everything that I used to do on my phone and my watch. Like, A, I don't think anybody really wants that, and B, like I just don't think it's super like within the realm of reality that people are going to stop carrying their phone. Like even with an LTE watch, I still carry my phone everywhere. But clearly they could improve it, and I think that for the 2 or 3 or 5 apps that most people have and use on a regular basis, like that should be better than it is. So my guess is this will continue to improve, but like other stuff is just going to take some time.
Like as someone who is not a developer, like, I don't know what the actual limitations are. Like, I don't know what is causing what. I don't know what an application could do if it could use the frameworks that Apple uses, right? Because that seems to be the problem, is, right, that Apple's apps are better because they're not using WatchKit. They're using some frameworks that Apple apps use, right? So they're able to take advantage of things differently. So my feeling is, like, if developers feel like that they need a better system to make their apps better, then yeah, I want them to have it, and that would be great. But I don't think that getting rid of applications completely is a good idea. I actually think it's a bad idea, because I use applications on my watch every day, right? Like, just because some people don't use them or some people don't use the watches at all, I don't think that means they should completely can it. Should they make it better? Yes, definitely. But the idea of the Apple Watch just being a thing that you can just get information from, I think over time I've started to move away from that a little bit because of the LTE watch. Like, the LTE watch enables me to treat my watch like it's a little computer sometimes. Like, when I'm at the gym or whatever, like, I actually don't have my phone with me, and I can do a lot of things on my watch. And I want that stuff to get better, because I do see a potential for this watch to be like a mini computer that just does what I need it to do without having to have a thing where I can check on my feeds, right? But, like, I can check an email if I need to. I can send a text if I want to. I can check the weather. I can get this, like, basic information from it. But it just giving me information isn't necessarily what I want. Sometimes I want to be able to act on the thing too. And I don't think that getting rid of all of that stuff is a good idea. I think it's a bad idea, and I actually think that it would be a detriment to the watch overall. I would love to see this stuff get better, because I would like to see more complex and more full-featured applications. But I don't think that scrapping it is a good idea. I think it's a bad idea. And I actually do believe that Apple... I actually believe more that they're more likely to improve watchOS than they are to improve Siri at a fast rate. It's because Siri's been around for so long, right, at this point.
Yeah. And Apple's really good at frameworks and, like, system software and API stuff. And Siri, assumedly, is a very different problem set than, like, building tools for developers to build on top of an OS. Like, that's Apple's bread and butter.
Especially when, like, a lot of the tools already exist, but they're just being used internally. Well, sure. It feels easier to, like, fix up some of that stuff to release to developers than it would be to, like, fix a problem that they seem to have not been able to completely fix for the last 6 years or something. So yeah. I really hope that there is more that will be shown in the future on watchOS. Like, I really hope that it's going to continue, because, like, year over year, watchOS has gotten so much better, but maybe the things that they're opening up for developers hasn't been as strong. But it would make me very sad if apps went away completely. I think that is a bad move.
So you mentioned the LTE watch, and I wanted to say that it's been more than 5 months, and I think it's just ridiculous that we still have no news as to, and if ever the Apple Watch with LTE will become available in more countries. So I'm pretty happy with my decision to buy a Series 3 standard Wi-Fi watch a few months ago, because otherwise I would still be waiting. And I really like my Series 3 watch. It's faster, the battery lasts forever. But I would love to have the LTE version, and I think it's super strange that we have no confirmation by Apple whatsoever. So that's too bad.
And whilst we're on this train, like Apple Pay Cash, all that kind of stuff, like these are like should be really important things that seem to be very slowly, if at all, moving out. And I really want to see stuff like that start to expand a little bit more. I don't know what's going on recently, but, like, Apple seem to be not being as good as they have been in the past about international rollouts and expansions for new things. So I would like to see that.
There's a whole page, I think, on the Apple website that lists all of the features by country. And someone a while back, they asked me to compile like a full article about all the regional differences of iOS features, which I think is a super fascinating story that I just haven't had the time to get to. But even if you consider stuff like indoor mapping or lane guidance in Apple Maps, those features are not available for me at all. So they're literally impossible to test unless, I mean, I can look up a mall or an airport in the US maps. I would need to go to for a driving session in the UK to test lane guidance, which is unfeasible, to say the least. You also drive on the wrong side, so that's
you can
also...
you can drive my car anytime you come to Memphis.
Today's show is also brought to you by Casper. Casper are the company focused on sleep, dedicated to making you exceptionally comfortable one night at a time. Hey, you spend a third of your life sleeping. That is a lot of time. Like, there isn't anything else that you spend a third of your life doing. So don't you want to make your sleeping experience the best it can possibly be? That's why you need Casper. Casper mattresses are perfectly designed for humans, with engineering to soothe and support your natural geometry. Casper mattresses have all the right support in all the right places. Casper combine multiple supportive memory foams for a quality mattress with just the right sink and bounce, and that is what makes them so comfortable. Their mattresses are designed and developed in the US, and they have a breathable design to help regulate your body temperature throughout the night. Casper is very quickly becoming the internet's favorite mattress, with over 20,000 online reviews with an average rating of 4.8 stars. Casper will deliver their mattresses directly to your door, and if for any reason you don't love it, they have a hassle-free return policy. Casper offers a 100-night risk-free sleep on it trial, so you can be sure of your purchase. Now, Mr. Stephen Hackett, I believe that you are given all the right support in all the right places every evening. Is that correct?
I am. Yeah, we've got a Casper. We've had it for a while now, and it really is fantastic. The mattress we had before, I kind of thought was going to be awesome, and it turned out that it was really hot to sleep in. Like, you would kind of sink too much and be warm. And in Memphis, we have like hot, humid weather basically 9 months a year. And it was really uncomfortable, but the Casper is great for those warm, sticky summer nights.
You can get $50 towards select mattresses by visiting casper.com/connected and using connected at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Once again, that is $50 towards select mattress purchases by going to casper.com/connected and the offer code connected at checkout. Our thanks to Casper for their support of this show and Relay FM. So there's a lot of rumors going on right now. They're like kind of small, roundup-y product type things, which is kind of leading to two trains of thought. Are we going to see some kind of probably pretty chill Apple event maybe at the campus sometime within the next month or two, or are we going to get a bunch of press releases? So there are a few different selections of products, some new rumors, some old rumors, but let's run through some of the things that could find their way into a potential event. So the first off is new iPads. So we spoke a couple of weeks ago about these cheaper iPads, so kind of like a refresh to the current iPad situation that is existing right now, like the 329 one. So that looks like it would make its way in, but kind of nothing else, right? There's not going to be a new iPad Pro in March. In fact, there were rumors today kind of trying to detail what the new iPads could look like later on this year. Federico, what are these features? What are we looking like to get from the iPad Pro line later on this year?
So it looks like we're gonna get the iPads with Face ID, and therefore there will be some kind of not bezel free, but sort of edge-to-edge design like on the iPhone, I suppose. And no home button, again, just like the iPhone 10. And there will be both, again, a 10.5-inch and a 12.9-inch iPad Pro models. And the latest rumors from today, they say that Apple will make an announcement at WWDC again. So just like last year, and maybe some kind of update to the Apple Pencil, although it's not clear what kind of feature we'll get on the new Apple Pencil. And no, based on this report from Rosenblatt Securities shared today. It's called Rosenblatt Securities. The analyst's name is Jun Zhang. And no details as to whether there also will be a smart keyboard or new smart cover. Just, iPad Pro with Face ID. So that's pretty cool, but I don't think it's ready for March.
Yeah, I would still be surprised if that is in June even. Like, I would be really happy to get more new hardware, but that would be a surprise to me. But it would make me feel a lot better about no new software features. Get a new fancy iPad. Yay, sure, okay.
Yes.
So I guess that device would probably get a little bit physically smaller, maybe?
That would be nice.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, the bezels are already really thin on the 10 inch.
On the 12.9, that would be especially welcome because the bezels are still huge. So
does this rumors both devices?
yes.
That would be cool. I mean, I would really like that 12.9 with either. I wonder if it would be a bigger screen, like it would actually be bigger than 12.9, or if
change the form factor. I thought about
bring the physical form factor in. I think personally, I would prefer keep this form factor the same and give me an even bigger screen. But what they're probably going to do is just bring the device in, kind of like squeeze it in.
I think so. I don't see.
But that would be also pretty cool. I'd like that too.
What else do we have on this rumor list? What about the iPhone SE 2? I think we talked about this a while back. The idea of Apple doing a follow-up to this phone, right?
I think it's been popular enough that they'll do it, but it's kind of there are a lot of conflicting thoughts about what this device will get. So there were like a lot of different rumors from different analyst firms, and I think a lot of this stuff is just speculation, but it's informed speculation. Some people are saying that there will be significant changes, and some people are saying there won't be significant changes. I think personally I lean towards the not significant change area. I think it would be really nice to see a small version, like a really small version of an iPhone 10, right? Like it has all the iPhone 10 guts in it and Face ID and stuff like that, but I don't see it. I think kind of just like maybe new processor and some other little bumps here and there, but I don't foresee a super fancy future for the iPhone SE 2 at least this year.
Yeah. I don't know why would Apple make a mini iPhone 10 where the iPhone 10 is still the latest version.
Yeah.
I mean, when they did the iPhone SE, the iPhone 5 design was already passed, I think. So I don't think that will happen.
Well, and a huge part of the SE is the price. It starts at like $349 in the US, and to keep that price down, the easiest way to do that, I would think, would be to upgrade the internals but leave the case and the machining and everything else alone. If they invest in it to make it a tiny iPhone 10, just knowing other things about Apple, I just don't know how they do that and then keep the price where it is. You know, like that those two things feel like they're in big conflict to me.
What about this MacBook Air rumor that we're gonna get a cheaper model? Is this interesting?
I think it is. You know, the MacBook Air assumedly exists to hit a price point. It starts at $999. The 12-inch MacBook is $1299. So there's a bit of a gap there. And my feeling is, just from like talking to people and like talking to listeners and readers, and my guess is the MacBook Air still sells really well. Yes, the CPU in it is pretty old at this point, but I think people looking to spend $1,000 or especially less on the on a notebook, like I don't know if that's the biggest priority to them to have the newest CPU. So this rumor is weird because it just says a price drop. People have attached all their hopes and dreams for the MacBook Air to this rumor. Like I don't think it's going to get a Retina display. I don't think it's going to get Thunderbolt 3 probably, unless it's just if they upgrade the CPU, then maybe that comes along with it. But I think at the very least, we could see an $899 or even a $799, according to a rumor today, MacBook Air. And I think a $799 MacBook Air, even if it doesn't get any CPU increase, I still think it would sell really well because it's big for students. It's big for people who just need a Mac and don't have the budget for something nicer. And for people who buy them in bulk, a lot of MacBook Airs still get passed out within businesses as part of large deployments. And so a $799 retail price, if you're education or buying in bulk, is maybe, $749 or $699. That is really interesting to me. That would be by far the cheapest notebook Apple's ever sold. And I think it would continue to sell well at that price. So maybe this is March, maybe it's later, maybe there's a CPU update, but my gut says it's more or less the same machine it is now, but noticeably cheaper. And I think even at $899, I think that's a lower enough price that I think more people would look at it, maybe switching to the Mac for the first time. The Mac Mini to bring up Apple's other old machine. When it was announced, it was really cheap, and part of that pitch was, hey, if you want to switch to the Mac, this is the easiest way to do it because it's super cheap and you just plug all your stuff into it. Well, people don't use desktops anymore. They use notebooks, and Apple doesn't really have a switcher notebook anymore. I think the MacBook was supposed to be that, but until they can bring the price down, it's not. And something $799, $899, somewhere in there competes with a lot of mid-range PC notebooks. I think it'd be interesting. I hope they do it.
So I have a question for you, right? Because I don't know this. I know that like some of the older iPads and some of the older iPhones sticking around in the iOS line, there were like a lot of complaints that those devices were holding back iOS, and it was like making it difficult for developers because they had to keep targeting for these slow, underperforming devices.
The A5 processor hung around forever.
Yeah. Is this the same on the Mac? Like, is this the same kind of problem?
I don't think it is at this point. The system requirements for macOS High Sierra go back all the way to like 2009 machines, and the rest of it kind of like 2010. So you're talking about machines that are 7 years old can still run High Sierra. They might not run it great. I've run High Sierra on some of these older machines, and honestly, if you put an SSD in them, it's more or less fine. So I don't think they're at that point quite yet, because the MacBook Air that is for sale today, if you're walking in Apple Store right now and buying a MacBook Air, it's really basically from 2015. And so I think they're well within that sort of like margin of acceptable performance. So I don't really worry about that with the MacBook Air at this point.
So if we were going to look at, so we got these, right? Refreshing the iPad, refreshing the iPhone SE2, a price drop in the MacBook Air, and if there was going to be an event or like a big kind of PR thing, it would probably also include AirPower and some refreshed watch bands and cases. This isn't an event, is it? Like, this doesn't feel like an event. I can't imagine somebody getting on stage for this selection of things.
No, I mean, you still need the big product if you're making an event, especially Apple is under so much scrutiny from the entire industry. You cannot make an event to announce a cheaper MacBook Air and a wireless charging mat and a bunch of bands for your watch and an iPhone SE. It just feels like
these will all be welcome products, but they are press release products. They're not.
It feels
if
it would be like a press release event, like a bunch of minor products all clustered together with people getting on stage to repeat their specs and prices. Like, it would be a boring event unless there's a surprise of some kind, but I don't think we've seen any mentions of surprises coming.
Like the only thing that I think could slot in here, but there are no rumors of it and it's not expected, would be a new Apple Watch. Right? Like, I feel like if there was a new version of the Apple Watch, you could maybe make that the headliner and then do this other stuff, but I don't think that we're due for that.
No.
Right? Like, I don't think that that's going to come. But like that feels like it's something that could fit in here, which is outside of the usual kind of flow of the events. But I don't think we're ready for that even.
No, because that was refreshed in September. So
exactly.
Yeah. I want to buy a bunch of AirPower mats when they come out because I'm really looking forward to that. And also, I suppose the updated AirPods with the case, because I just assume that Apple is launching the AirPower mat and the new AirPod case together. So
yeah, I think that won't just be the case. Like, I think it will be those rumored refreshed AirPods. Like, I think it'd be really weird for them to just release I know that they will release the case as a separate thing that you can buy for your existing ones, which is fine. But like at this point, I feel like they probably have an AirPods update nearly ready, and who even knows where AirPower is, right? So it's like they may as well just wait and do those two things together.
So there's one thing that I wanted to talk about. I'm gonna start. This is the point where in our notes we have something that says Federico's surprise story, which the guys have no idea what I'm talking about, and there are no notes.
Federico really likes to do this. He really likes to tell us, like, 3 days before the show, I have a secret surprise story for you, and then that's it.
Because I feel like the surprise brings out the interesting questions in you, Myke, because you really react positively to the surprise, and it makes for a good show. So that's why I do
like
it.
Surprises.
So I'm gonna start from the main problem that happened. Now, I don't want you to be concerned, but I lost everything on my Synology.
What? Oh, okay, hang on a second. We need to go back a little bit to last weekend, I think, here. From my perspective of Federico sending us a message that said, I lost the drive on my Synology, but, like, was he saying, thank God for RAID 1 or something, that you were super proud of something you'd set up? So I'm expecting that is how this story begins.
So, a couple of weeks ago, in the middle of the night, Sylvia and we start hearing this loud beep sound, and it just wouldn't stop. It's like, what is going on here? All our devices were set to silent, and the sound was coming from the living room. So I go to the living room and I look around and I realize the beep is coming from the Synology, which is this home server that we were using to store personal backups and our TV show episodes and movies. And so I log into the Synology web interface, and it says that one of the drives had failed. And it was like 1 a.m. I didn't want to look into it. I was like, I'm just going to turn the beep sound off and I'll think about this tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, no, you can't do that. Like, that's wild.
Right? don't want to, deal with file system issues in the middle of the night.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah,
I live for that.
That's what you like to do. So what I'm about to share is going to drive some folks, especially those who like to debug file system problems, really upset. Because my course of action has been really different from what those people might expect. So the following day, I log into the Synology and everything is super slow for some reason. And it says volume 1 is degraded. It's like, what does it even mean? First of all, what is volume 1? That was my question. It's like, what does it mean that it's degraded? This complex terminology, which I really don't like. And everything starts being super slow to the point where I cannot even open the system preferences to change settings. It would not respond. And it starts beeping again. But I cannot open the settings to turn the beep sound off.
Where are these settings? I've never used a Synology. What device are you using?
It's so the Synology runs like a fork of Linux.
Oh, so this is all on it. You're like trying to deal with it on it. Okay.
And this is all on it. And you log into the web interface using like a local IP address, and you have this Linux interface which has been modified by Synology, and you turn the beep sound off by opening like some kind of preference screen, and it says turn system alert off.
Turn off the beep.
So that. Turn off the damn beep because I really don't want to hear. And it wasn't working. So everything was unresponsive. And I was trying to use an interface in the volume manager thing to understand what was going on. And it just wouldn't work. And I started doing some Googling around. And everybody's recommending that you install Linux and you do this manually. Like you understand what is going on with the file system, which is X4. I don't even know what it means. This is it sounds like a John Syracuse nightmare, but it's a bunch of terms that I don't understand. So what I do is I text Steven. And I'm like, let's assume that I have a SATA drive, like a 3.5-inch drive, and I need to access the contents of this drive. What do I do? And Steven tells me, well, you need an adapter, and you need to... and I was like, does this work? So I send him like a screenshot or a link, and it's like, yeah, it should work. So I talked to my girlfriend, and I'm like, I guess we should somehow extract the contents of the drives, at least the one that is working, and at least try to salvage this situation and maybe reinstall the Synology OS from scratch. We make a backup of the drive, and then we reinstall, and we hope that the issue goes away. So we go to the electronics store, and I buy this adapter. But I don't look on the description on the package. That was my fault. So I come back home and I connect this adapter, but it was an adapter. So the SATA connector is the same, but if you have a 3.5 inch drive instead of a 2.5 inch drive, just the adapter itself will not power the drive on.
People ask me why I don't bother with network attack storage.
hold on. So the drive will not spin. It will not make a sound. And I was holding my ear against the drive to hear if it was actually spinning, but it was not spinning. So I was like, hey, I text Steven again. I was like, it does not turn on. He's like, yeah, you may need like some external power source. So I go on Amazon. And the adapter and the whole box is beyond the state of being returned to the electronics store at this point. Like, I think I opened it using scissors or something. Like, it was like the package was entirely destroyed, and it was like a 10-euro adapter. So whatever, I'll just keep the adapter. I don't want to go to the store. So I go on Amazon and I buy a docking station, which is like this. It's like this cradle thing where you put the drives in, and it's got a power. It's like a cable that goes into the wall, and it powers the drives, and you connect them. So I wait 3 days for the docking station to arrive, and in the meantime, I discovered this tool called Paragon for Mac, which allows you to read the contents of drives that have a file system that is not officially, like a format that is not officially supported by macOS. In this case, this ext4 format. It's like, okay, I'm gonna wait for the docking station, connect my drives, and with Paragon, I will be able to open the file system, and there will be, I suppose, like a user folder, and I will copy everything into my MacBook storage. So the docking station arrives and I connect the drives, they spin, they power on. I see the drive in Paragon. I was like, okay, I did it. I was very proud of myself until I realized that all the folders that were exposed in the drive were like system stuff, and my user data was encrypted.
Oh, no.
So I was like, oh no. I go to YouTube and there's like, here's how to recover data from your Synology, even if it says that the drive has failed and the volume has crashed. Because in the meantime, yes, the entire volume had crashed and I couldn't even reboot my Synology anymore. And I watched these tutorials on YouTube. There's a guy who is spelling out Linux commands that you're supposed to enter in the term. And at the point I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I don't want to install Linux. I actually even tried to make a USB key Ubuntu drive. And nothing worked. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make a partition on my MacBook. This would have never happened if I had an Apple computer, because at least it would have given me some terminology that I would understand, or it would have given me an actual interface that I could use instead of a guy spelling out commands for the Linux shell. I know that people love to solve these problems. I hate these problems. I hate this kind of, you have to do it yourself because there's no GUI for you. This is not at all what I like in computers. So I have made the decision that I will buy a Mac Mini.
It's the end of times.
This is like a trail of just like really questionable decisions that you have made so far.
I realize that now people are gonna send me all kinds of recommendations on how to recover data from a Synology
They're literally
drive.
happening in the chat room right now. So like, you know, you've got a whole situation ahead of you here.
No, here's my reply. If you are like a normal human being and you want to come to my house and do this for free, and you're not weird and you're not creepy, get in touch with me. But nobody will do this. So I don't have the time for this. I don't have the patience. I don't have the knowledge. It's not fun for me to do at all. I don't want to go to a technician who will do it for me and see my data. Thankfully, the personal data that was stored in the Synology, for some reason, I don't know why, but a few months ago, I had copied everything in my Dropbox account. So all we lost is effectively our Plex library, which is fine. I can rebuild that.
I can rebuild it. I can make it stronger.
I can re-download stuff. If personal and sensitive and highly important work and personal data was stored in the Synology, I would have probably gone to greater lengths to make this work, to recover that data. But because it's just a bunch of Plex media folders, I just don't care.
I think I'm lost a little bit. Didn't you lose just one drive? Why is everything...
No, I said that both failed.
Oh,
and,
okay.
I don't know what happened. Something in the file system happened, obviously, that was mirrored to the other drive as well, because they were in a RAID configuration. So something happened. I don't know where, how, or why. I don't even know what it means that a volume is degraded. I need normal human words for this stuff, and I need a normal interface. And I realized that, and this is going to be a bigger topic, but what happened is that I realized that I have a bunch of stuff that I've tried over the past 2 years, and I just don't have the patience for that stuff anymore. And I want to sell every of these accessories, of these devices that I bought, because ultimately the Apple stuff...
Is the NVIDIA Shield included in all of this?
The NVIDIA Shield has been already reset and put in the box. So this is a change that is happening in my life right now that I'm sure we'll talk about again on the show. But I realized that despite all the issues that I have with Apple software and hardware sometimes, it's never driven me this crazy, or it's never caused me these kind of problems. And for better or worse, the Apple stuff works for me quite well. And it's designed for humans. It's not designed for Linux nerds. I just don't have the time or patience, or I just don't like doing this. And so it's sort of this problem, this entire situation that really stressed me out a couple of weeks ago. It became this bigger theme of, I bought a bunch of devices over the past couple of years because I wanted to explore. And I'm glad I did that. I wanted to try a bunch of different things. But now I realize that I'm happy when everything is consistent and is made by Apple and it works and it's got a UI that I understand and it does not require me to type out commands in a shell. So I'm gonna sell a bunch of these things and I want to buy a Mac Mini. But there's an entire discussion to be had about the Mac Mini, which we probably should have next week because it's a big topic. But this surprise was meant to be
not next week because Steven's not here next week, and I can't help you. Yeah,
in a couple of weeks, I'm still doing my research. I'm still doing my research about what I want and what I want to do. There's things that I plan on selling, so I already I'm doing my research in terms of what it costs to ship stuff. I have a big box outside where I'm keeping all the stuff, like in our garage where I want to sell all these things. But yeah, it's been a sort of like an epiphany. Like this single thing broke, and the entire system, just like my Synology, I guess, the entire system crashed. And
so
yeah.
What you're saying is that you have you've returned to your eBay store ways. Really, that's what you're doing.
You get to use your training.
I can use my eBay skills again. So yeah, it's this. I guess the surprise was meant to be sort of an appetizer for this idea of I'm happy with my Apple devices because they're not perfect. Apple makes some really questionable decisions sometimes. But you know what? Their stuff works. And it's visual, it's friendly, which you cannot say the same thing for Linux. Which I'm keeping my Raspberry Pi because it does something that, that I need. But also that could probably be run on a Mac Mini home server. So we'll see. But yeah, this was a surprise. Are you concerned?
I'm really sorry that you went through this. I'm really glad you didn't lose anything important. I did a similar thing. I had a Synology. I had a hardware problem with it. I now use a Mac Mini and a Drobo. But I know that if that Drobo explodes, it can be extremely difficult to get data off of them. And so I shared this with you when you said that, because I asked you, oh my gosh, did you lose anything important? I keep just regular old, unencrypted USB portable hard drives that I back up that Drobo to, once a month or so. And so I've got everything safe and sound on a device that is very simple and that I trust completely. And so I'm sorry. And I totally get it. Cause especially if you're doing file sharing and stuff, that's just easier on the Mac. The Synology is really powerful, but it has a lot of overhead that I found unnecessary. And I think maybe that's what you're responding to as well. It's I can just have a Mac, a Mac Mini, I can run Mac OS on it. I don't even have to run Mac OS server because that's not a thing anymore. And you can just share it to your network and it's going to work. And you're going to get the benefit. And what I guess is going to happen is that you will find uses for that Mac Mini. Having an always on Mac can be helpful for different things. And so, you'll be able to run Backblaze and back up the external drives. I think this is going to be a better setup once you kind of get through the pain of the migration.
Yeah. It's there's been a lot of discussions with Sylvia here about, and she, for once, she's like, I told you, just like the guys, she said many years ago that you should have bought a Mac Mini. And I was like, all of you, that you were right, but I wanted to explore. I wanted to have my wilderness ears, to understand what was out there, and I needed to try stuff for ultimately to realize, no, not for me.
This is why I have no interest in looking at something like a Synology, because I already know how I will be when I'm having the cold sweats of trying to fix these problems. And you describing that to me, if this happened to me today, I wouldn't be able to deal with it. I'd be like, well, I can't do anything now because I don't have the time to sit and fix this problem. I wouldn't have even gone as far as you did. I would have had to have just got up and walked away from it. With where I am in my life right now, I need my technology to be doing it for me. I wouldn't be able to deal with something like that. So I completely sympathize with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, well, it's fine. Thankfully, just media files. So that's totally okay. But it was still stressful because at least I wanted to try, but I couldn't because it's way beyond my skills and my knowledge. Anyway, this will be, I suppose, a continuing topic of Federico gets rid of all the stuff and is considering a Mac Mini. So be on the lookout for updates on this story.
Bring us home, Stephen.
If you want to find show notes this week, links and stuff we've talked about, you can do so over on the website, relay.fm/connected/183. If you want to go visit Federico and fix his hard drive, you can get in touch with us. You can send us an email through that webpage, or you can find us on Twitter. You can find Federico, he's the most important one this week, at Viticci, Viticci. And of course, he writes what do we call it? What are blogs called now?
PodStorm.
PodStorm. He writes the PodStorm, MacStories.net. And this Mac Mini is going to put the Mac back in Mac Stories. I'm very excited. You can find Myke as IMYKE. You can find me on Twitter as ISMH. We should thank our sponsors this week, Hover, Away, and Casper. They made all of this possible. And I guess until next time, boys, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Adios. I don't have it yet. I just don't have it yet.
You're just supposed to say bye.
But I can't, though, because I've listened for 5 years to that specific end. So I can't get it out of my head. It's the only thing I can think of.